The Russian Baikal BE S1000 processor showed outstanding results, but will never be released. The Chinese government has been talking about the need for import substitution in the semiconductor sector for quite some time. In the beginning, we saw a stomping around, after which local companies began to copy the developments of famous brands. Critics of this approach have minimal knowledge of how progress generally moves, because any student must first study the work of their teacher, and only then move forward. It is almost impossible to create something from scratch, especially when it comes to the technology sector. As soon as the Chinese learned to copy their American counterparts, they immediately started developing their own chips. So far, the movement is going with varying success, and American sanctions are constantly getting in the way. Today, it can be stated that the engineers of the Middle Kingdom are not yet able to independently produce the most modern semiconductor chips, but these guys have no choice. After blocking access to American technologies, progress will go slower, but the movement will not stop. But with Russian semiconductors, everything is quite complicated. Only a few companies showed signs of life, and promising developments can be counted on the fingers of one hand. The most interesting one was supposed to be the Baikal BE S1000 server, which includes 48 cores and is produced using TSMC 16nm process technology. It is based on the ARM architecture with Cortex-A75 cores and has a heat package no higher than 120 W, since it can accelerate no higher than 2 GHz. A few days ago, a small review of the Russian Stone appeared on the Tom's Hardware website, and today we will study more data that allows us to draw more serious conclusions. It is important to understand that this is one of the first attempts by Russian engineers to gain a foothold in the high-performance sector, and as a result, we managed to reach the processor capacity of 2017. Whether this is good or bad, you can decide for yourself, but it seems to us that there is a breakthrough. The only problem is that we may not see the finished product, but more on this below. So, the Stone from Russian engineers is approximately similar to the 16-core AMD EPYC 7351, as well as the 20-core Intel Xeon Gold 6148, bypassing them in some tests and losing in others. Baikal BE S1000 demonstrates the most impressive performance in multi-core tests, but this is easily explained by the fact that the Russian Stone has 2 times more of these cores than its competitors. Compared to the Huawei 920, there is parity in some tasks, but a strong lag in others. For example, in core mark, the first place is taken by the Huawei Stone, while in 7-zip, the Baikal BE S1000 lag behind the leader is minimal. Obviously, the developers did not set themselves the task of replacing modern processors of market leaders. It was necessary to release a high-tech Stone, proving its capabilities in real-world tasks. After that, it was necessary to assemble a certain number of systems, within which further modernization could be carried out. But all these plans are not destined to come true. The fact is that the Taiwanese contract manufacturer TSMC has stopped the release of Baikal BE S1000, and the sanctions imposed will not allow Russian developers to get a sufficient number of new processors. It turns out that today it is not even possible to fulfill the minimum plan, since Russia does not have its own production base. Theoretically, the Chinese comrades could help, but they prefer not to run ahead of the locomotive. For example, SMIC has the ability to produce chips on a 14nm process, and is also rapidly developing 7nm. But now the Chinese are afraid of more serious sanctions. Most likely, they will be introduced in any case, but the delay will allow the Chinese giant to get the necessary head start. Russian engineers are not idle either. Alas, the Baikal BE S1000 will not go into production, but we do not rule out that right now the Russian Federation is working on an even more promising Stone. You never know, suddenly China will still decide to expel the Americans from its territory, having gained control of the island of Taiwan. In this case, sanctions can be imposed against the United States, although in the current geopolitical situation, the Chinese leadership prefers not to use extreme measures.